Welcome to Bedtime Stories by Tom and Sam.
The best of both worlds. The sun shimmered on the surface of the pond, warming the lily pads where Josh, a plump toad with mischievous glint in his eye, basked. He puffed out his chest, admiring his reflection. "Harry," he croaked, "you wouldn't believe the life I live here. Imagine, waking up to the gentle lapping of water, the sweet scent of blooming lilies, and the chorus of frogs serenading the dawn." Harry, a crab with a shell the color of gold, scuttled closer, his pincers clicking. "Sounds idyllic, Josh," he chuckled. "But our ocean is a symphony of its own. Imagine the crashing waves, the swirling currents, the dazzling schools of fish flashing like thousands of tiny jewels." Josh blinked. "Schools of fish? We have a few tadpoles here, but nothing like that." Harry nodded. "And the creatures. Giant squid that could swallow you whole, playful dolphins leaping through the air, and those magnificent whales, their songs echoing for miles." Josh scoffed. "Whales? We have a grumpy heron who sometimes likes to snatch us. And the biggest creature we have is an old snapping turtle, and even he's mostly interested in basking." Harry laughed. "You should see our coral reefs. A whole underwater city of vibrant colors, teeming with life. You'll never be bored." Josh, intrigued, imagined a world of shimmering coral castles and hidden caves. "Well, what about the storms, Harry? The ocean must be terrifying when the storm hits." Harry shrugged. "We find shelter, of course, but even a storm has its beauty. The power of the waves, the wind howling, it's exhilarating. And afterwards the air is so fresh, the water so clear." Josh sighed contently. "Well, I wouldn't trade my peaceful pond for anything, but I must admit, the ocean sounds like a truly extraordinary place." Harry smiled. "And your pond, Josh, sounds like a haven of tranquility. Perhaps one day you could visit the ocean, and I could explore your peaceful little world." Josh, his eyes wide with excitement, knew this was an adventure he couldn't pass up. "I'd love that, Harry. I'd love that." And so, the two friends, so different in their homes, yet bound by friendship, dreamed of the day they would explore each other's worlds, expanding their horizons and discovering the wonders that lay beyond their own familiar shores. Roger's Big Antlers. Roger the Moose was a gentle giant with a heart of gold. He loved exploring the forest, munching on tasty leaves, and playing hide-and-seek with his friends. But there was one thing that made Roger feel self-conscious: his antlers. They were enormous, spreading out wide like branches of a mighty oak tree. "Look at those things," they'd snort. "You look like a walking thicket." Or, "You'll poke someone's eye out with those." Roger would try and ignore them, but their words stung. Wishing he could somehow shrink his magnificent antlers, one sunny afternoon, Roger was wandering through a meadow, feeling particularly down. He slumped against a large oak tree, wishing he could disappear. Suddenly, a graceful deer with a coat dappled brown and eyes like polished amber emerged from the trees. Her name was Sonia. "Why the long face, Roger?" she asked. Roger hesitated, unsure if he should confide in her. But Sonia had a kind face, and her eyes held a gentle understanding. So, Roger poured his heart out, explaining how the other moose teased him about his antlers. Sonia listened patiently, then smiled. "Roger," she said, "your antlers are magnificent. They're like a crown fit for a king." Roger looked at her, surprised. "You really think so?" he stammered. "Absolutely," Sonia declared. "They're unique, strong, and incredibly impressive. Besides," she added with a mischievous twinkle in her eye, "they make you look incredibly handsome." Roger's ears twitched. "Handsome?" he repeated, feeling a blush creep over his neck. Sonia laughed, a melody that filled the meadow. "Yes, handsome," she confirmed. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, Roger. You are wonderful just the way you are." Roger felt a warmth spread through him. He had never felt so seen or appreciated before. From that day on, Roger held his head high. He still encountered teasing, but Sonia's words echoed in his mind, reminding him of his own unique beauty. He learned to embrace his antlers, not as a source of shame, but as a symbol of his strength and individuality. And though the teasing never completely stopped, Roger learned to ignore it. He had found a friend in Sonia, a friend who saw the true beauty within him, antlers and all. He realized that true confidence came from within, and that he was perfectly wonderful just the way he was. Nancy the Chipmunk. In the heart of a sprawling forest, nestled amongst towering trees and vibrant wildflowers, lived a tiny chipmunk named Nancy. Nancy was a cheerful and energetic creature, always busy scurrying about her burrow, collecting nuts and playing with her friends. However, there was one thing that constantly bothered Nancy: the endless supply of pine cones that seemed to invade her yard. Every morning, Nancy would wake up to find her yard littered with pine cones, as if they had fallen from the sky overnight. She would spend hours diligently collecting them, piling them into a neat little mound at the edge of her yard. But as soon as she finished, more pine cones would appear, as if it were magic. One day, Nancy decided to investigate the source of this never-ending supply of pine cones. She followed the trail of pine cones, which led her to a tall pine tree at the edge of the forest. As she climbed the tree, she discovered a group of mischievous squirrels playing a game of pinecone toss, their laughter echoing through the branches. Nancy realized that the squirrels were the ones responsible for the constant pinecone invasion. She approached them and explained how the pine cones were making her yard a mess. The squirrels, feeling a pang of guilt, apologized and promised to stop tossing pine cones into Nancy's yard. From that day on, Nancy's yard remained pinecone free, and she could finally enjoy her peaceful home without the constant worry of cleaning up after the mischievous squirrels. She learned that sometimes the simplest solutions can solve the biggest problems, and that a little understanding and communication can go a long way. The Compass and the Map. Once upon a time, there was a little compass named North. North was very proud of his job. His needle always pointed true north, helping people find their way. He lived in a small, worn leather case and traveled in the pocket of a friendly hiker named Henry. One day, Henry was hiking in a thick, foggy forest. The fog was so thick, North couldn't even see the sun. Suddenly, Henry tripped over a root, and North tumbled out of his pocket. He landed with a thump in a pile of soft moss. When North finally stopped spinning, he looked around. He couldn't see Henry. He couldn't see the sun, and worst of all, his needle was spinning wildly. North had lost his way. He felt dizzy and scared. "Oh dear," he sighed. "I've lost my North." North wandered through the foggy forest, his needle spinning and spinning. He bumped into mushrooms and tripped over twigs. He felt lost and alone. Suddenly, he bumped into something flat and papery. "Oof," said a voice. "Oh, excuse me," said North. He looked up and saw a large, rolled-up map. "No worries," the map said, unrolling a bit. "I'm Map. And you are?" "I'm North," said the compass sadly. "I'm a compass, but I've lost my way. My needle won't point north anymore." Map unfurled completely. He showed a picture of the whole forest, with winding paths, tall trees, and even a little drawing of Henry's hiking boots. "Well, North," Map said kindly, "it looks like you've had a bit of a tumble. But don't worry. I know exactly where you are." Map showed North where North was on the paper. North looked at the map, and suddenly his needle stopped spinning. It pointed straight to the top of the map, where the word North was written in big letters. "I see it," cried North, his voice full of joy. "I see North again. Thank you, Map." Together, North and Map followed the path. Map showed North which way to go, and North's steady needle kept them on the right track. They crossed babbling brooks and climbed over fallen logs. Finally, they heard a familiar voice calling, "North! North, where are you?" It was Henry. He was so happy to find North. He picked him up and put him safely back in his pocket. He carefully folded up Map and tucked him into his backpack. From that day on, North and Map were the best of friends. They traveled everywhere with Henry, always ready to help him find his way. North knew that even if he lost his way again, Map would always be there to help him. And Map knew that without North, he wouldn't be able to help anyone find their way. Together, they could go anywhere. Now close your eyes and dream of adventures with maps and compasses leading your way.
Sweet dreams, and thank you for listening.